It was a Monday morning, and the office was buzzing with its usual energy. The sound of keyboards clacking, phones ringing, and the occasional burst of laughter filled the air. I sat at my desk, sipping my coffee, trying to shake off the lingering exhaustion from the weekend. My name is Emily Carter, and at 31, I was at the peak of my career, or so I thought. I had been working at Harper & Lane, one of the most prestigious law firms in the city, for nearly a decade. I had started as a junior associate, fresh out of law school, and worked my way up to becoming a senior partner. It wasn't easy, but I had earned my place through hard work, dedication, and an unwavering commitment to my clients. But all of that was about to come crashing down, thanks to the one person I never expected to betray me, my sister, Olivia. Olivia, my younger sister by 3 years, had always been the golden child. She was charming, ambitious, and had a way of getting what she wanted. While I had always been the responsible one, the one who followed the rules, Olivia was the risk-taker, the one who played the game. And now she had decided to play her biggest game yet, at my expense. The call came in just as I was about to head into a meeting with one of our biggest clients. It was Mr. Harper himself, the managing partner of the firm. His voice was calm, but there was an edge to it that made my stomach churn. "Emily, can you come to my office?" No. I didn't ask questions. I knew better. When Mr. Harper summoned you, you went. I grabbed my notebook and made my way to his office, my heels clicking against the polished marble floor. As I walked, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Very wrong. When I entered his office, I was met with a sight that made my blood run cold. Olivia was already there, sitting in one of the plush chairs across from Mr. Harper's desk. She looked up at me as I walked in, her expression unreadable. But I knew my sister well enough to see the glint of triumph in her eyes. "Emily, please sit down," Mr. Harper said, gesturing to the chair next to Olivia. His tone was formal, almost cold, and it sent a shiver down my spine. I sat down, my hands gripping the armrests of the chair so tightly that my knuckles turned white. I could feel Olivia's eyes on me, but I refused to look at her. Instead, I focused on Mr. Harper, trying to read his expression. But his face was a mask, giving nothing away. "Emily, we've received some troubling information," he began, his voice steady but heavy with implication. "It appears that confidential client information has been leaked to one of our competitors. And the evidence points to you." I felt like the ground had been ripped out from under me. My heart pounded in my chest, and I could hear the blood rushing in my ears. This couldn't be happening. Not to me. Not like this. "Mr. Harper, I started," but he held up a hand to silence me. "The evidence is quite substantial, Emily. Emails sent from your account, documents altered after meetings, timestamps that match your access to our system. It's all here." He gestured to a stack of papers on his desk, and I felt a wave of nausea wash over me. I glanced at Olivia, who was now staring at her hands, her face a picture of innocence. But I knew better. I knew my sister, and I knew that this was her doing. "Mr. Harper, I would never—" I tried again, but he cut me off once more. "I'm sorry, Emily, but given the sensitive nature of this situation, we have to act quickly. Security will escort you to clear out your desk. We'll handle this as discreetly as possible, but I'm afraid your time at Harper & Lane is over." I felt like I was in a nightmare, one I couldn't wake up from. My career, my reputation, everything I had worked for, gone. Just like that. And all because of Olivia. As I stood up, my legs trembling beneath me, Olivia finally looked at me. There was a faint smirk on her lips, one that only I could see. She had one. Or so she thought. Security was waiting outside the office, and they escorted me to my desk in silence. The entire office was watching, their eyes filled with a mix of shock and curiosity. I could hear the whispers already starting. "Did you hear? Emily Carter got fired. I can't believe it. She was always so dedicated. Guess you never really know someone, do you?" I packed my things in a daze, my hands shaking as I placed my personal items into a cardboard box. My family photo, my coffee mug, my favorite pen, each item felt like a piece of my life being ripped away. And through it all, Olivia stood nearby, watching me with that same smug expression. "Need any help, sis?" she asked, her voice dripping with false concern. I didn't respond. I couldn't. Instead, I focused on the task at hand, trying to keep my emotions in check. But inside, I was seething. Olivia had always been jealous of me, of my success, of the respect I had earned at the firm. And now, she had finally found a way to take it all away. As I walked out of the office for the last time, I felt a strange sense of calm wash over me. Olivia thought she had won, but she had no idea what was coming. She had underestimated me, just like everyone else. And that was her mistake. The elevator doors closed behind me, and I was alone for the first time since the nightmare began. The silence was deafening, and I could feel the weight of what had just happened pressing down on me. My hands were still trembling as I clutched the cardboard box to my chest, the contents of my professional life reduced to a few meager possessions. I stepped out into the crisp morning air, the sun shining brightly as if the world hadn't just crumbled around me. The city was alive with its usual hustle and bustle, people rushing to work, cars honking, and the distant hum of life moving forward. But for me, time felt like it had stopped. I stood there for a moment, taking in the scene, trying to steady my breathing. My phone buzzed in my pocket, and I pulled it out with shaky hands. It was a text from my mother. Emily, what's going on? Olivia just called and said something happened at work. Are you okay? I stared at the screen, my heart sinking. Of course, Olivia had already called her. She'd always been the first to run to our parents, painting herself as the victim or the hero, depending on the situation. I didn't respond. I couldn't. Not yet. Instead, I hailed a cab and gave the driver my home address. As the car pulled away from the curb, I leaned back in the seat and closed my eyes, trying to process everything that had just happened. Olivia had framed me. She'd set me up to take the fall for something she had orchestrated. But why? What did she gain from this? Was it just jealousy? Or was there something more? I thought back to the last few months, trying to piece together the signs I might have missed. There had been small things, clients mentioning that their documents had been altered after meetings, emails I didn't remember sending, strange login attempts on my account. At the time, I'd brushed them off as glitches or misunderstandings. But now it all made sense. Olivia had been planning this for a while. She'd been careful, methodical, and ruthless. The cab pulled up to my apartment building, and I paid the driver before stepping out. My apartment was on the 15th floor, a sleek, modern space with floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a stunning view of the city skyline. It had always been my sanctuary, a place where I could escape the pressures of work and just be myself. But today, it felt hollow. I set the box down on the kitchen counter and poured myself a glass of water, my hands still shaking. As I sipped the water, I felt the first wave of anger hit me. It wasn't just anger at Olivia, it was anger at myself. How had I let this happen? How had I not seen it coming? My phone buzzed again, and this time it was a text from Olivia. Hope you're not taking it too hard, sis. Business is business, after all. I stared at the message, my jaw tightening. She was gloating. She thought she had won. But she didn't know what I knew. She didn't know that I had been preparing for this moment, even if I hadn't realized it at the time. I walked over to my desk and opened the bottom drawer, pulling out a small USB drive. I had started collecting evidence months ago, not because I suspected Olivia, but because I had noticed irregularities in the firm's system. I had always been meticulous about my work, and when things didn't add up, I made it my mission to find out why. What I had discovered was far more damning than I could have imagined. Olivia hadn't just framed me. She had been leaking confidential information to a rival firm for months. She had been selling insider information, manipulating documents, and covering her tracks with a level of skill that was almost impressive. Almost. I plugged the USB drive into my laptop and opened the files. There it was, everything I needed to clear my name and expose Olivia for what she had done. Emails, timestamps, encrypted messages. It was all there. But more importantly, it contained proof of something else. Olivia hadn't been working alone. She had been collaborating with someone inside the rival firm, someone who had been paying her for the information. I felt a surge of determination as I scrolled through the files. Olivia thought she had outsmarted me, but she had made one critical mistake. She had underestimated me. She had forgotten that I wasn't just her older sister. I was Emily Carter, and I didn't back down from a fight. My phone buzzed again, and this time it was a text from Daniel, one of my closest friends and a former colleague at Harper & Lane. "Emily, I just heard what happened. Are you okay? Do you need anything?" I hesitated for a moment before responding. "I'm okay, but I need your help. Can you meet me at La Mer at 7 tonight?" He replied almost immediately. "Of course. I'll be there." I took a deep breath and leaned back in my chair, staring out at the city skyline. The sun was beginning to set, casting a golden glow over the buildings. It was a beautiful sight, but I couldn't fully appreciate it. Not yet. Not until this was over. I spent the next few hours preparing for the meeting with Daniel. I printed out the most damning evidence, organized it into a folder, and rehearsed what I was going to say. I knew I had to be careful. If Olivia found out what I was planning, she would do everything in her power to stop me. But I wasn't going to let that happen. At 6:45, I left my apartment and headed to La Mer, a high-end restaurant downtown. It was a place I often went for business meetings, and the staff knew me well. When I arrived, Daniel was already there, sitting at our usual table. He stood up as I approached, his face filled with concern. "Emily, I'm so sorry about what happened," he said, pulling me into a hug. "I can't believe they fired you. It's insane." "Thanks, Daniel," I said, forcing a smile. "But I'm not here to talk about that. I need your help with something." I sat down and placed the folder on the table between us. Daniel looked at it, his brow furrowing in confusion. "What's this?" he asked. "Proof," I said simply. "Proof that Olivia set me up. And proof that she's been leaking confidential information to a rival firm." Daniel's eyes widened as he opened the folder and began flipping through the documents. His expression grew more serious with each page he read. "Emily, this is huge," he said finally, looking up at me. "If this gets out, it could destroy Olivia's career. And Harper and Lane's reputation." "I know," I said quietly. "But I didn't start this, Daniel. Olivia did. She tried to destroy me, and I'm not going to let her get away with it." He nodded slowly, his expression thoughtful. "What do you need from me?" "I need you to help me take this to the right people," I said. "You still have connections at the firm, right? People who would listen to you." "I do," he said. "But, Emily, this is going to get messy. Are you sure you're ready for that?" I took a deep breath, my mind racing. Was I ready? I thought about everything I had worked for, everything Olivia had taken from me. And I thought about the future, what it would mean to clear my name and rebuild my career. "I'm ready," I said firmly. Olivia made her choices. Now she has to face the consequences. Daniel studied me for a moment, then nodded. "Okay, I'm with you. Let's do this." We spent the next hour going over the details, planning our next steps. By the time we left the restaurant, I felt a sense of clarity I hadn't felt in weeks. This wasn't just about revenge. It was about justice. And I was going to make sure Olivia paid for what she had done. The next morning, I woke up early, my mind already racing with the day ahead. I had spent the night going over the evidence again, making sure every detail was perfect. I couldn't afford any mistakes, not now. This was my chance to turn the tables, and I wasn't going to let it slip through my fingers. I dressed carefully, choosing a sharp, professional outfit that exuded confidence. Today wasn't just about clearing my name, it was about reclaiming my power. I grabbed the folder of evidence and my laptop, double-checking that I had everything I needed before heading out the door. My first stop was the office of Marcus Wright, a senior partner at Wright & Associates, one of the most prestigious law firms in the city. Marcus and I had crossed paths several times over the years, and while we weren't close, I respected him immensely. More importantly, he had a reputation for being fair and ethical, qualities I desperately needed on my side right now. When I arrived at Wright & Associates, the receptionist greeted me with a polite smile. "Miss Carter, Mr. Wright is expecting you. I'll let him know you're here." I nodded, trying to steady my nerves as I waited. The office was sleek and modern, with floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a breathtaking view of the city. It was the kind of place I had always dreamed of working in, a place where talent and integrity were valued above all else. "Emily," Marcus's voice broke through my thoughts, and I turned to see him walking toward me, his hand extended. "It's good to see you. Come on back." I followed him to his office, my heart pounding in my chest. This was it. The moment of truth. "I'll get straight to the point," I said as soon as we were seated. "I know you've probably heard about what happened at Harper and Lane, but what you haven't heard is the truth." I placed the folder on his desk and opened it, revealing the evidence I had collected. Marcus leaned forward, his expression growing more serious as he began to read. "This is quite the accusation," he said finally, looking up at me. "If this is true, it could have serious implications for Harper and Lane and for your sister." "I know," I said, my voice steady despite the storm of emotions raging inside me. "But I didn't come here to make accusations. I came here to seek justice. Olivia framed me, Marcus. She leaked confidential information and made it look like I was the one responsible. I have proof." Marcus studied me for a moment, his gaze piercing. "Why come to me? Why not take this to the authorities?" "Because I need someone who understands the legal world," I said. "Someone who can help me navigate this without it turning into a media circus. And because—" I hesitated, choosing my words carefully. "Because I believe in doing things the right way. I didn't want to go behind anyone's back or resort to underhanded tactics. I want to handle this professionally." Marcus nodded slowly, his expression thoughtful. "You've always had a reputation for integrity, Emily. That's one of the reasons I've respected you over the years. If what you're saying is true, then I'll help you. But we need to be careful. This could get messy." "I understand," I said. "And I'm ready for that." We spent the next hour going over the evidence in detail, discussing our next steps. By the time I left Marcus's office, I felt a sense of relief I hadn't felt in weeks. I wasn't alone in this anymore. I had an ally, someone who believed in me and was willing to fight for the truth. But as I stepped out into the bright sunlight, my phone buzzed with a text from Olivia. "Missing your office yet, sis? Don't worry, I'll take good care of it for you." I clenched my jaw, my grip tightening on my phone. Olivia was still gloating, still convinced she had one. But she had no idea what was coming. I didn't respond to Olivia's text. Instead, I took a deep breath and reminded myself of the bigger picture. This wasn't just about her petty gloating. It was about exposing the truth and reclaiming my life. I had a plan, and I wasn't going to let her distract me. As I walked down the bustling city street, my mind raced with the next steps. Marcus had agreed to help me, but he'd also warned me that this wouldn't be easy. Olivia wasn't just my sister. She was a skilled manipulator, and she had allies at Harper and Lane who would likely back her up. I needed more than just evidence. I needed a strategy. My phone buzzed again, this time with a call from Daniel. I answered immediately. "Emily, I just got off the phone with someone at the firm," he said, his voice low and urgent. "Olivia's already making moves. She's telling everyone that you were the one who leaked the information and that you're trying to frame her now. She's spinning this whole thing to make herself look like the victim." I clenched my fists, feeling a surge of anger. Of course she was. Olivia had always been good at playing the victim, at twisting the narrative to suit her needs. But this time, I wasn't going to let her get away with it. "Thanks for the heads up, Daniel," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. "I'm meeting with Marcus right later today to go over the evidence. We're going to take this to the authorities, but we need to be careful. If Olivia catches wind of what we're doing, she'll try to sabotage us." "What can I do to help?" Daniel asked. "Keep an ear to the ground," I said. "If you hear anything at all, let me know. And if anyone at the firm tries to contact me, tell them I'm not available." "Got it," Daniel said. "Stay strong, Emily. We'll get through this." I hung up the phone, feeling a mix of gratitude and determination. Daniel had always been a true friend, and knowing I had him in my corner gave me strength. But I also knew that this fight was far from over. Later that afternoon, I met Marcus at a quiet cafe downtown. He was already seated at a corner table, a cup of coffee in front of him, and a stack of papers spread out on the table. He looked up as I approached, his expression serious but calm. "Emily," he said, gesturing for me to sit. "I've been going over the evidence you gave me. It's solid, but we need to be strategic about how we present it. If we go in guns blazing, Olivia will have time to cover her tracks." I nodded, taking a seat across from him. "What do you suggest?" "We need to take this to someone who has the authority to act quickly," Marcus said. "Someone who can't be swayed by Olivia's charm or her connections. I have a contact at the Securities and Exchange Commission, someone I trust. If we present the evidence to them, they can launch an investigation before Olivia even knows what's happening." I felt a flicker of hope. This was exactly the kind of move we needed, something swift and decisive. But I also knew it came with risks. What if Olivia finds out before the investigation starts? I asked. "She's already spreading rumors about me. If she realizes what we're doing, she'll do everything in her power to stop us." Marcus leaned back in his chair, his expression thoughtful. "That's a valid concern. But here's the thing, Olivia's overconfident. She thinks she's already won. She's not expecting you to fight back, especially not like this. If we move quickly, we can catch her off guard." I took a deep breath, considering his words. Marcus was right. Olivia had always underestimated me. She saw me as the responsible older sister, the one who followed the rules and played it safe. She didn't realize that I was capable of playing the long game, of outmaneuvering her when it mattered most. "Let's do it," I said finally. "Let's take this to your contact at the SEC." Marcus nodded, a small smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "Good. I'll set up a meeting for tomorrow morning. In the meantime, keep a low profile. Don't engage with Olivia or anyone at Harper and Lane. Let them think you've given up." I agreed, though the thought of staying silent while Olivia continued to smear my name was infuriating. But I knew Marcus was right. This wasn't the time for emotional reactions. It was the time for strategy. That evening, I returned to my apartment, exhausted but determined. As I stepped inside, I was greeted by the familiar sight of my living room, with its floor-to-ceiling windows and stunning view of the city. It had always been my sanctuary, but tonight it felt different. It felt like a war room, a place where I was preparing for the battle of my life. I poured myself a glass of wine and sat down at my desk, pulling out the folder of evidence. I went through it again, making sure every detail was perfect. There was no room for error. Not now. As I worked, my phone buzzed with another text from Olivia. "You've been awfully quiet, sis. Cat got your tongue? Or are you finally realizing you're out of your depth?" I stared at the message, my jaw tightening. Olivia was trying to provoke me, to get under my skin. And as much as I wanted to fire back, I knew I couldn't. Not yet. Instead, I set my phone aside and focused on the task at hand. Tomorrow was going to be a big day, and I needed to be ready. The next morning, I met Marcus at the SEC office downtown. The building was imposing, with its sleek glass facade and bustling lobby. As we walked inside, I felt a mix of nerves and determination. This was it, the moment of truth. Marcus's contact, a woman named Sarah Collins, greeted us in the lobby. She was in her late 40s, with sharp features and an air of authority that immediately put me on edge. "Emily, this is Sarah Collins," Marcus said. "She's the lead investigator for cases like this." Sarah shook my hand, her grip firm. "Marcus has told me a lot about your situation. Let's go upstairs and talk." We followed her to a conference room on the 10th floor, where a team of investigators was already waiting. The room was filled with monitors and stacks of files, and the atmosphere was tense. "Let's get started," Sarah said, gesturing for us to sit. "Emily, why don't you walk us through what's been happening?" I took a deep breath and began to explain everything, from the small discrepancies I had noticed months ago to the moment I was fired. I handed over the folder of evidence, watching as Sarah and her team began to go through it. "This is quite the case," Sarah said finally, looking up at me. "If what you're saying is true, this goes beyond just corporate sabotage. This is insider trading, fraud, and possibly even criminal conspiracy." I nodded, my heart pounding. "I know. And I'm ready to do whatever it takes to bring the truth to light." Sarah studied me for a moment, her expression unreadable. Then she nodded. "All right. We'll launch an investigation immediately. But I need to warn you, this is going to get ugly. Once we start digging, there's no telling what we'll find." "I understand," I said. "And I'm ready for that." As we left the SEC office, I felt a sense of relief mixed with apprehension. The wheels were in motion now, and there was no turning back. Olivia had tried to destroy me, but she had no idea what was coming. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of activity. The SEC investigation moved quickly, and it wasn't long before the truth began to unravel. Olivia's carefully constructed web of lies started to collapse under the weight of the evidence I had provided. Emails, encrypted messages, and financial transactions all pointed to her involvement in leaking confidential information and engaging in insider trading. The media caught wind of the scandal, and soon, Harper & Lane was front-page news. The firm's reputation was in tatters, and Olivia's name was dragged through the mud. She was arrested and charged with multiple counts of fraud, insider trading, and corporate espionage. The once golden child of our family was now facing the possibility of jail time. As for me, the truth came out and my name was cleared. Marcus Wright offered me a position at Wright & Associates, not just as a senior partner, but as the head of a new division focused on corporate ethics and compliance. It was a dream job, one that allowed me to use my experience to make a real difference in the legal world. The day I started at Wright & Associates, I stood in my new office, looking out at the city's skyline. It was a fresh start, a chance to rebuild my career on my own terms. The view from the 45th floor was breathtaking, but it was the sense of accomplishment that truly filled me with pride. A few weeks later, I received a letter from Olivia. It was brief but sincere. Dear Emily, I'm sorry for everything. You were stronger than I ever gave you credit for, smarter too. I hope someday you can forgive me, but I understand if you don't. Victoria. I placed the letter in my desk drawer, not ready to respond but grateful for the acknowledgement. Forgiveness would take time, but I was at peace with the choices I had made. One evening, as I was leaving the office, I ran into Marcus in the lobby. He smiled and handed me a folder. Thought you might want to see this, he said. I opened it to find a proposal for a new initiative, a mentorship program for young lawyers aimed at promoting integrity and ethical practices in the legal profession. I think you'd be the perfect person to lead this, Marcus said. What do you think? I smiled, feeling a sense of purpose I hadn't felt in years. I'd be honored. As I walked out of the building, the city lights twinkling around me, I felt a deep sense of gratitude. Olivia had tried to tear me down, but in doing so, she had given me the opportunity to rise higher than I ever imagined. I had built something stronger, something truly mine. Sometimes, the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about rising above. And that was the greatest victory of all.